Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we are currently on our way down to Hypattion, and we're accelerating up. I warped us forward a little bit, but not terribly far. As you can see, we're about 6 kilometers off the ground right now, and we're traveling at about 48 meters per second. So we're going to have to bring this on down fairly soon. Where are we coming down? Okay, kind of right at the edge of this crater. But basically all we need to do is kiss the ground, get the achievement, and lift back off, and then we'll decide where we're going to go next. We've got a fair amount of fuel left here, still 14% out here, and I want to check a thrust to weight burn here. Let's see what that looks like. Amazing. 20. Okay, so that seems fine. I do want to be slowing us down a little bit at this time. We're about 4 kilometers up, and we're going to need to slow down just a smidge. Okay, this is more than enough of a slowdown, so I'm going to cut our throttle here. And let's just coast right on down. So I want to pin open this guy because I want to know when we need to stage this. We've got lots of fuel left, though, at this point. So I'm thinking right now we land here, and then we head in to Jastris. Maybe we're able to get on Boreas. I'm not sure yet. We could probably go to Boreas first and then try Jastris, if we've got the fuel. That could be like an extension mission. So that seems fine for now. We're absolutely going to land here on Hypattion, and this will be no problem whatsoever. We're going to have a very large amount of fuel remaining after this. So we're currently about 2.4 kilometers up, and we're going to need to slow this right on down. This, at 7%, is a 1.32 thrust to weight. Okay, let's bring it up to about a 2 thrust to weight. And let's just bring this on down. So yeah, surface velocity is correct. We're very slowly slowing down right now, but I'm fine with this. We're 1.3 kilometers up still. So this seems fine for now. Our shadow should be visible out over here when it actually becomes visible. I think we might be slowing down a little too slowly, though. Let's ramp this up a little bit. So this is now 19, 18, 17. Yeah, this is a better slowdown pace. I want to get down below 10 meters per second. Okay, so that's 10 meters per second, cutting the throttle down to a thrust to weight of, not there, 1.24. That seems relatively okay. So we're at a 7% throttle right now. And we're just gently drifting on down. Excellent. From this angle, it looks so uphill. And then you pan like this and you're like, oh, it's not. But this is because the size of this world, if you can use the word world, is so small. This, keep in mind, is a very oblong little asteroid. So, yeah. We're traveling at about 7 meters per second right now, and we're about 300 meters up. Okay. I'm wondering which direction is which. Okay, I want to switch our heading over to be easterly, like this. There we go. That'll be fine. We're traveling at about 5 meters per second at this point. I'm cutting our throttle down a bit. We're at 1.08, so we're still decelerating. But this is a very, very, very gentle deceleration at this point. Okay, so now we are moving at 4 meters per second, and we're about 140 meters up. We can see our shadow over here, and we can use that to gauge how far off the ground we are. So far, so good. Still traveling at 4 meters per second. I'm going to throttle us up a little bit here. I'd like to bring this down a little bit more. Okay. So we're now at 3 meters per second. 2 meters per second. 1 meter per second. Cutting throttle. Touchdown. Okay. Before we tip over, I want to lift us right back off, and I want to head off over this direction. So we're just going to aim for an apoapsis of probably something along the lines of, I don't know, 50? maybe even 100 kilometers. It's not going to take very long. So we kiss the ground, and off we go. We've got another planet to visit. We're technically in orbit as of now. I'm going to burn a little bit more here. That's 80 kilometers, 90, and... there we go, 100 kilometers. As we can see here, this would probably be an impact trajectory if we took another orbit, so we're not going to. We're just going to circularize this on up. So let's bring that up to 100 kilometers circularized. There we go. Doesn't take much delta V to do that. And let's go. Okay, so 22.5 meters per second. Let's do it. As you can see, we're down to 10% fuel in our drop tanks at this point. So we're doing very, very well for fuel. This burn is not happening. I'm going to manually execute it. Good enough. That'll do the trick. Interesting. I must have pressed the wrong button there, but that's absolutely fine. So next up, I want to do a little bit of research here into Boreas. So do we think that we can land on this guy and take off again? Quite possibly, I think. I want to check in on the status of, let's see here, Juno Boreas. I want to see the status of the atmosphere here. It has a very thin atmosphere. Okay, so that's fine. It can be visible from 4 kilometers. It causes small amounts of drag. It's from 4 kilometers, though. I don't think that's going to cause a significant issue for us. I want to land on it. We'll see if we've got the fuel to take off again and head to Jastris. If we do, that's amazing. And if we're able to also do a landing in Euratos, that would be incredible. But we need to keep in mind, when we land on Taurus, that's almost certainly a one-way landing. I do not believe that we're going to be able to do anything else there. We're not going to be able to take off. So if we can do this all in one mission, the rest of these bodies here, that would be great. We'd be delighted if that was the case. So let's head off over to about here, and let's see what direction this burn is. Can we have a lot more DV, please? Thank you. This is the wrong way. So we want to bring this around to perhaps here then. And what's this looking like? That's more like what I want to see. So I want to set Boreas as our target. And are we in a decent transfer window right now? Almost certainly not. This is still a little awkward on the escape. Let's try it from here. That's looking better. Except it's the opposite side. Okay, so we need to put this out over here. Beautiful. That's looking better. Okay, so we bring this in. This transfer window is slightly awkward. So I think instead what we're going to do is we're going to put this out up around 200 megameters or so. So that's going to be 519 meters per second. Although this is claiming, well, that's going to be a relative speed there. This is going to be 64.5 to get us to that point. So let's go ahead and run that burn. This is not going to burn out our drop tanks, that's for sure. We're still running 10% fuel on those, so that's really fine. Very, very not a problem. Okay. Farewell, Hypatchian. Oh, I wanted to check to see 0.4% of players have landed on Hypatchian. And I think the reason why these achievement numbers are so low is because there aren't contracts to come out this far. There's just no real gameplay reason to do this. So let's go ahead and warp to the change of sphere of influence. There we go. And now I want to come around to the periapsis here, and this is actually 310 megameters. Sure, whatever. I want to see if we bring this in, would this be okay timing? Actually, this is pretty okay right here. So that's 3147 kilometers. I'd like to dial that in a little bit. We would probably need to... 861 kilometers. We'd probably need to change inclination a little bit. Yeah, that's not bad. So we could target somewhere around 50 kilometers here. That seems very good. 2 kilometers. We know that the atmosphere is going to be around 4 kilometers, most likely, but I'm going to target 50 here. So something around... Boy. Okay, let's turn this sensitivity down a bit. There, this'll do. So 286 meters per second, let's do it. That's not going to be too bad. And that's going to put us into a very similar orbit there. So the vast majority of our slowdown is going to be done by gravity from, what's the name of this place? Boreas. Excellent. We're going to get a huge amount of slowdown from that. So as we can see, we are down to 7% fuel remaining in our drop tanks, but our Methalox engines is still running at about 1.5 kilometers per second. Once we drop these, it's going to be at its absolute highest, and this will start to drop at that point. So we've still got a lot of fuel here. So let's get ourselves into this position, and we'll see how close we actually are. 50.3, perfect. That's exactly what I want to see. So now we're going to warp our way over until we get to the point where we are, there we go, in the sphere of influence of Boreas. So we're in a awkward inclination here, that's for sure. We're going to want to choose our landing point kind of carefully here. 59.8 kilometers as well. Okay. Well, we'll plan a burn at the periapsis here, and we'll just circularize that at about 60. That's fine. Okay, so let's bring this down to 60 kilometers. 62.5, that will do. Well, actually, we'll bring it down to 59.8. Nice and circularized. We're in a polar orbit, and that's not ideal, but we can land near the equator here, and then we would be able to, at that point, absolutely, we'd be able to just launch equatorial, which would be what we'd want to do. So that's the way we're going to handle that, and let's just bring this right on in. So this is going to be 265 meters per second with a burn time of just a few seconds here. So that's really not too bad. I'm not even going to warp this burn at this point. So that looks great. And how many people have entered the sphere of influence of Boreas? The answer is 0.8. Okay, 0.8. Wonderful. So we're now down to about 3% fuel remaining in our drop tanks. I think we're going to finish up this burn fully without dropping the drop tanks yet. And as you can see here, we're up to 1.7 kilometers per second in our drop tanks, approximately. And this will do. So now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to land somewhere near the ascending node, which is going to be basically exactly on the equator. So we're going to want to check minus 491. Okay. So we're going to want to do retrograde 491, something like that. And we're going to use this primarily for timing, right? And the idea here is we're going to need to burn this sometime up this direction. So I'm going to warp here. I'm going to commence the burn like this. So we're going to automatically commence the burn, but I want to be positioned at a pitch of 0. And I'm going to delete the burn at this point. We were just using it for timing. So there we go. We're going to get this burn done. And now our current goal is to get rid of all of our lateral velocity. So we want this to go away. We're going to drop our drop tanks very shortly. We've got about 120 kilograms of fuel left in each of these drop tanks. So we're going to burn off the rest of that fuel. And it's gone. Fantastic. So off go the drop tanks, and you can see about 2.5 kilometers per second remain in this tank. So we're going to be landing on this engine again, ideally. And that seems fine. I'm definitely noticing that our lateral velocity is not perfect. Okay, so we are going to need to switch our velocity over to retrograde. And as you can see here, we're not actually turning. This is because this guy is off because of the flight program power usage. But we can activate this part, And now we'll start turning again. And actually, this is saying it stopped and isn't actually using any power. So that seems reasonably fine. Let's lock our velocity to retrograde and let's just get turned. Cool. So our gyroscope is going to finish burning all of that power soon. Power losses like that are definitely a concern. And I want to move our pitch over to about here because I want to work on that lateral velocity primarily. So we're going to move ourselves over to about here. Okay, we can see that that lateral velocity is pretty much gone. At this point, we have almost entirely vertical velocity. So we are on our way down to Boreas. Luckily for us, we're going to land right on the edge of this crater. But also, that's not exactly lucky, but luckily for us, we don't actually care all that much. Now I want to do a quick thrust to weight check. 14? Okay, should be fine. That's still 60 kilometers up here. So it's going to take us some time to make our way down. I'm going to quick save here in case something goes catastrophically wrong. But I am going to warp us down to somewhere... It pulled us out of warp there. I'm going to stow our solar panels. Reason being, I have a concern, and that concern is that we are experiencing drag forces. They're extremely small, but I believe that we are currently... maybe not. It just pulled us out of warp. Okay, so we're down to about 38 kilometers above the surface right now. That's fine. Let's bring this down a little further. I'm going to do a braking burn at about 20 kilometers to see how it feels. Okay, so we're coming out of warp right now, and our ground level just jumped down to 15 kilometers. That was interesting. Well, we're doing a braking burn right now. We're significantly lower than I thought we were. So that's good to know. We can see that thrust to weight is still at about 10, though, so I'm not too concerned about it right now. Gonna let us accelerate a bit. And we're going to keep an eye on that ground level altitude. I wonder if it was in sea level mode and I switched it to ground level? That could explain that jump. Maybe that was what happened. I'd have to go back and check. But we're at about 10 kilometers up right now, traveling at about 100 meters per second, which seems reasonably fine for now. Now I want to set our heading over to be on the east side, like this. That doesn't actually change our overall positioning, but I mean, we're going to want our velocity retrograde. So for right now, this is fine. We're going to change this a little later. Okay, so we're at about 8 kilometers above the surface right now. I'm going to do a braking burn at about 5. So now 7 kilometers above. And we are 6 kilometers above the surface. Commencing braking burn slightly early because I'm mildly concerned. But nothing to be concerned about. Thrust to weight is good. Cutting the burn, and we are re-accelerating. Okay. We should be experiencing some amount of drag at this point, although I'm not seeing any here. We're about 3 kilometers above the surface. I want to slow us down a fair amount. Okay, so we're moving fairly slowly right now. Now we've still got 1.91 kilometers per second in our Methalox engines, not to even count what's in this. So we may be able to pull off all of this in one go. That would be very exciting. So we're currently traveling at about 45 meters per second, 2 kilometers up. Gonna commence a braking burn at about 1 kilometer. Okay, we're at 1 kilometer now. Commencing braking burn. Looking to bring us down a pretty good amount. And now we're just going to gently burn down. We're at 12 meters per second. I'm going to burn us at 1.16 thrust to weight. This engine is barely on. It's at 11%. So we're just going to slowly decelerate as we get closer. We're still about 600 meters up, though. So actually, I'm going to let this coast just a bit. And we're going to bring this down to about 300 meters. Right about now. Okay, good deceleration. And now I want to be at a very gentle deceleration. We're 200 meters up and decelerating. We're at 8 meters per second right now. 7 meters per second. I want a little bit more deceleration than this. 6 meters per second. 5 meters per second. 4. 3 meters per second. This is too much deceleration. Let's put ourselves right here, just barely above 1 thrust to weight. 4 meters per second. 3 meters per second. 2 meters per second. 1 meter per second. And we're on the ground. Okay, so now I want to move us over to 90 degrees. And let's get out of here. We landed, and now we're leaving. Fantastic. So this apoapsis, it's going to take a bit to build up because we're getting a lot of horizontal speed. Our current vertical speed is decreasing. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Our time to apoapsis going up, so we should be fine. So we're just going to build this apoapsis up to, once again, probably around 100 kilometers. Lot higher gravity here, that's for sure. But that's 2 landings completed, and I definitely think we've got the fuel to go for the 3rd. Okay, 114 kilometers, it'll do. We shut down the engine slightly late, but that seems fine. Let's circularize this on up, and that will be fine. As you can see here, we're now in a very nearly perfectly equatorial orbit. This is going to be a little inclined anyway, but it's fine. Let's go ahead and warp on over. We're just on 10x right now. We've still got some air density here, I guess. Okay, there we go. So our apoapsis did drop a little, but that's fine. I don't mind. Okay, let's light up this engine and get into orbit of Boreas. At this point, we absolutely need to extend our solar panels again, too. So there we go. That looks good. We're now circularized, and our next goal would, of course, be Jastris. So we can set that as our target. That's going to be a fair amount of DV to get to, but once we get in orbit of this, it's going to be very little DV to do anything there. And then the question is, what about aero braking on Atraitus? Well, we're going to have a much lower orbit than we did on Titos, so we should be able to aero brake much more quickly here, in theory. But what I want to do right now is find ourselves, ideally, an encounter from here with, what's the name of this again? Jastris. Okay, so we push this out over this direction, and this is pushing it the wrong way. I think we need to go over, like, here. It's not perfect on the timing. Let's try out over this way. It's better. Okay, so overall, we've got a big inclination issue there. So that's going to cause us a problem. For sure. Let's back off on this. And let's just put it somewhere out over here or so. So with that in mind, we would be able to match the planes and just go in that way. That seems fine. Let's go ahead and execute this. So that's going to be 176 meters per second. We've still got over a kilometer per second in this. So we should be able to, I think, yeah, we can definitely land on that. I think we can even deorbit on Atraitus. So that would be absolutely wonderful. Let's go ahead and warp out of this sphere of influence. Goodbye, Boreas. That's not Boreas. There's Boreas. Goodbye, Boreas. You were, fleeting. We weren't there for long, that's for sure. So at this point, 0.5% of players have landed on Boreas. Good to know. Okay, so we are out of here. So at this point, of course, what we want to do is we want to go to the target ascending node out over here. And our target is select Jastris. Our target inclination is 26.93. Okay, so we want to drop our inclination to 26.93 degrees. Like that. So that's not going to be very much, 38 meters per second. Let's go ahead and execute that. That should put us directly in plane. And then we're going to have to get ourselves an encounter, right? So the question is, if we plan to burn about here and we brought this guy right on down, it's going to be a fair amount of DV to do. We knew that diving this deep into the gravity well of a gas giant, or I guess in this case probably an ice giant, is going to be complicated, but that's fine. So something along the lines of this. That would be 15 kilometers and apparently an impact trajectory. So let's just bring that up to probably somewhere around... this is definitely the wrong way. Somewhere around 50 or so. Okay. So something along the lines of that. Is that going to put us retrograde? I'm not entirely certain if that's going to put us retrograde. I feel like it might. Let's pull back on this. Okay. And then go a bit like this. Actually, I'm going to start this over. Minus 800. We're going to dial it in from here. So then we can go a little bit retrograde. And we'd be looking for this encounter here. So that's 3.68 kilometers. And I want to back it off like this. Okay, do it. So we'll execute that burn. That'll get us to where we need to go, and this is going to be an 875 meter per second burn. Now, we've got just about that same amount left in here. The question is, how big of a braking burn is this actually going to be? And it's probably going to be fairly significant, is my guess. Okay, so at this point, we are out of Methalox. So let's go ahead and activate these guys here for this last little bit of the burn. Okay. There we go. So this is currently closest approach info, 51.1 kilometers. Looks good. I want to see, before we end for the day, I want to see how exactly this is going to go. Oh, right. We need to turn off our command disk. There we go. So now we're going to warp up over this direction, and we're going to let our... this direction. There we go. We're going to let our batteries recharge a little bit. We no longer need to have juice for our... And yes, there's a Jastris flyby. We no longer need to have juice for our planned burn at Periapsis. This is going quick. Okay. There's a lot of DV. Are we retrograde? Or is this thing just moving this fast? To be honest, I don't know. We need to just park retrograde at this time. Lock retrograde. There you go. We just need to park retrograde and do what we can to bring this down. We're moving fast. So we'll see if we're able to pull this off. It should be interesting, for sure. So that's Jastris up there. That's the rings. And that is, of course, Euratos. So we're going to slow down as much as we can. And, of course, we need to be pulling the fuel from up here. So we need to withdraw fuel there and be going like this. So we're currently rocking about 2 kilometers per second of delta V in this. So that should be fine as long as our... burn time doesn't exceed the amount of time we have to do this, right? So that's the concern at this point. And that's exactly what's going to happen. We're not slowing down enough. Okay. So that's understood. I want to continue this burn for a little bit. And yeah, this is the best burn that we can do for right now. We're slowing down nicely, but we're going to need to slow down more than this. And that's absolutely understood. So I'm going to get rid of that throttle there, or that burn there, and we're going to warp on out. We're going to have to wait for another encounter at this point. So this is going to be pretty slow, but I do want to come over to the periapsis here, and I want to bring this guy on down, something like this. And that's going to let us burn the majority of our fuel and have another chance here, or the majority of our speed and have another chance here. So we're going to go ahead and execute that burn, but it is past time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to slow this on down, and we'll see if we have enough to get all of our stretch goals for this particular mission done. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGard, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.